In 1998, the most powerful financial institution on earth, J.P. Morgan, quietly opened its doors to a client that should have never been allowed inside. A man with a reputation that followed him like a shadow. A man with no clear business model. No transparent source of wealth. And yet, he was treated like royalty. That man was Jeffrey Epstein. And today, because of what has been unsealed, we now know something most people still cannot process. The world does not run on laws. The world runs on protection. And protection is bought, not earned. Most people still believe the banking system is heavily regulated. They believe words like, know your customer. They believe in anti-money laundering. They believe banks are these sterile institutions where rules apply equally to everyone. But the Epstein files expose a secret so large, it completely destroys that illusion. A $290 million secret. A settlement so massive it wasn't a payout. It was a message that said, we will pay almost $300 million just to prevent a trial. Because a trial would have done something money cannot undo. A trial would have forced the truth into daylight. And once that happens, the entire power structure starts collapsing. While you and I are questioned for a single suspicious transaction, while normal people are frozen for a $1,000 transfer. The most powerful bank in the world spent 15 years ignoring thousands of red flags. Not because they didn't see them, because they did see them, and they chose to protect Epstein anyway. Let's be very clear. This was not a software failure. This was not a compliance mistake. This was not, oops, we missed it. This was a calculated institutional decision. Because Epstein wasn't just a client. He was an asset, a financial asset, and something even darker. A blackmail machine. And J.P. Morgan, the bank that claims it is the guardian of global finance, chose to keep that machine running. Now listen carefully. The internal reality of J.P. Morgan's relationship with Epstein should have ended in 2008. That's the year Epstein was convicted in Florida for sex crimes. That moment should have triggered an immediate shutdown of his accounts. It should have triggered permanent closure, a full de-risking, a complete termination. Any normal citizen would have been removed instantly. But Epstein wasn't treated like a normal citizen. Instead, reports indicate the bank did something unbelievable. They moved him into private client status, the highest tier, the do not ask questions tier. And in that moment, Epstein received what is essentially a shield so strong. It allowed millions of dollars to flow through the system undetected. This is where the story stops being a crime scandal and becomes a global financial horror story. Because if Epstein was allowed to operate freely inside J.P. Morgan, then that means one thing. The bank was not just a bank. It was a pipeline connecting Wall Street to political power, to intelligence circles, to global elites, and to the darkest form of control. Now here's where the unsealed documents become absolutely terrifying. Between 2008 and 2013, J.P. Morgan reportedly received over 40 internal alerts, suspicious activity alerts, cash withdrawals, wire transfers, millions moving in ways that screamed criminal. And every single time, those alerts were manually overridden, not by a low-level employee, not by a junior compliance officer, by senior management. Think about what that means. It means there were employees inside the bank who tried to do their job. They tried to raise alarms. They tried to report the suspicious behavior. But the executive level crushed those alarms over and over again because Epstein wasn't just a high-net-worth client. He was a gateway, a bridge between the world's most powerful bankers and the political elite. And once a bank is connected to that kind of bridge, the rules stop existing. This is what the public does not understand. Banks do not just hold money. Banks hold secrets. And in Epstein's case, the secrets were worth far more than any fine, far more than any lawsuit, far more than any reputation damage. Because Epstein's real value was not cash. It was compromise, blackmail, leverage, the ability to control powerful people by owning their worst moments. And if the most powerful people in the world are compromised, then the decisions they make are not free decisions. They are controlled decisions. Policies, wars, interest rates, regulations, media narratives, all influenced by people who are no longer acting out of public duty, but out of fear. This is why this scandal is not about one man. This is about the plumbing of the global economy and how it was used to facilitate a shadow operation. Now let's talk about the $290 million. JP Morgan paid $290 million to settle a lawsuit brought by Epstein's victims. But understand what that settlement really was. It was not justice. It was containment. It was a legal firewall. It was hush money on a corporate scale. Because if this went to a full public trial, JP Morgan would have been forced to release thousands of internal emails. And those emails would have exposed names. Not just Epstein, not just victims, names of banking executives, names of private bank heads, names of people still alive, still powerful, still running institutions today, including communications involving Jess Staley. And those emails weren't normal. They weren't professional. They contained coded language, cryptic phrases, disturbing undertones, the kind of language that only exists when people are hiding something. And JP Morgan knew if the public ever read those emails, the bank wouldn't just be embarrassed. It would be dismantled. So instead, they paid nearly $300 million. And in doing so, they shielded their leadership from consequences, while ensuring the most explosive evidence remained buried. But the $290 million wasn't even the end, because the U.S. Virgin Islands also secured another $75 million. That means in a single year, JP Morgan paid over $365 million. Let that number sink in. A bank does not pay $365 million because of a mistake. A bank pays $365 million when the alternative is catastrophic, when the alternative is the collapse of the entire structure. These numbers are the smoking gun. They prove something most people still don't want to accept. The global financial elite were compromised long ago, and the banking system has been used as a tool of geopolitical control through blackmail. Now here's the part that should make your blood run cold. If the people controlling the world are being blackmailed, then the policies that shape your life, your savings, your future, are being made by individuals who are not free. They are not acting in your interest. They are acting to protect themselves and to protect the institution. This is why the system always chooses bank survival over middle-class survival. Every time. Because when you are compromised, you don't care about morality. You care about containment. Now, the mind control element of this scandal is what the mainstream media does. They will tell you, it's over. Bad actors removed. Systems stable. Nothing to worry about. But the unsealed documents show the rot goes deeper, all the way to the foundation. We're seeing names of central bankers, economists, tech billionaires, political figures, connected in a web that bypasses democracy, bypasses law, bypasses accountability. This isn't corruption. This is governance through leverage. And once a society reaches that stage, it becomes a controlled demolition. Trust is destroyed deliberately, because when people lose faith, they become desperate, and desperate populations accept things they would never accept in normal times. This is the blueprint. History shows it again and again. When the public loses faith in institutions, the planners use the chaos to introduce even more restrictive systems under the disguise of safety, transparency, security. And as we move deeper into 2026, the pattern is becoming impossible to ignore. The Epstein exposure is being used as a catalyst, a control burn, to destroy the old banking model so they can introduce the next one, a central bank digital currency system, a system where every transaction is monitored, where every purchase is logged, where every movement of money is approved by an algorithm that never sleeps. They want you to believe banks are too corrupt to survive, so you will willingly accept a digital grid, a grid where you have zero privacy, zero escape. And once you enter that grid, you don't own money, you rent permission. Now, while the mainstream media distracts you with the sensationalist crime angles. The real financial reality is being ignored. The dollar is being hollowed out, and the leadership class is compromised. A compromised leadership cannot make hard decisions, because hard decisions create enemies, and enemies create exposure. That is why the system is paralyzed. That is why the unrealized losses in the banking system, hundreds of billions, are not being addressed, because the people at the top are not free. They are managing scandals, not managing the economy. And while the public is busy analyzing names, the insiders are moving wealth, quietly, aggressively, into hard assets, because the elites don't trust the digital system either. They built it, and they are fleeing it. Now ask yourself something. If your life savings are sitting inside a bank, and that bank has proven it will pay hundreds of millions to hide its own secrets, do you really believe your deposits are safe? Or are you standing on a trapdoor? Because when the next crisis hits, the system will not protect you. It will protect itself. And that is where bail-in laws come in. The final mechanism. The last card they will play. When the debt becomes unpayable. When scandals become too heavy. When confidence finally breaks, they will reach into deposits. They will call it stabilization. They will call it rescue. But it will be seizure. Now here is the one thing they cannot seize. The one thing they cannot freeze. The one thing they cannot delete. Physical gold. Physical silver. Because metal cannot be blackmailed. Metal cannot be canceled. Metal cannot be erased with a keystroke. And that is why the smart money is moving. Record speeds. Out of digital. Into tangible. Now, the internal data leaking from these unsealed files suggests Epstein had ties far beyond finance. Ties to officials connected to the Federal Reserve. Ties to regulatory bodies. Ties that created a loop of protection for over 2 decades. Which means the very people who set interest rates, who control money supply, who shape the economy, may have been connected to a man whose entire business was compromise. Visitors to a private island. People who should have been untouchable. Or not. And that changes everything. Because if the guardians of money were compromised, then the market was never free. It was managed, manipulated, and the illusion of fairness was simply marketing. You are witnessing the end of the illusion and the birth of a new era. An era where tangible reality is the only protection you have against institutional decay. The 2023 settlement was an attempt to put the genie back in the bottle. But the unsealing of documents in early 2026 proved something. Truth cannot be contained by money alone. The old elites are being sacrificed, one by one, not because the system suddenly became moral, but because the system needs a scapegoat, a purge, a ritual cleansing, so they can rebuild a new technocratic order, a digital surveillance world. And they will justify using this corruption. They will say, see, the old system was too dirty, so now we must track everything and monitor everyone and remove privacy. This is the move. This is the reset, the death of physical cash. And most people will wake up too late because they will think this story is just about Epstein. But it was never just about Epstein. It was about control. It was about the people gambling with your financial future while being blackmailed behind the scenes. And here's the brutal truth. Blackmail is the ultimate economic weapon because it ensures the people in power will always choose institutional survival over public survival every single time. Now, leaked warnings suggest the next wave of unsealed files will focus on money laundering. And if that happens, a regulatory crackdown will come. But don't celebrate too early, because crackdowns are never designed to protect you. They are designed to consolidate power. The crackdown will be used as cover to merge the banking system into fewer institutions. Fewer, bigger. Too big to fail. Until eventually, it becomes one grid, one digital cage, where your ability to spend depends on compliance. This is the trap, and it's closing. Now, while the West is distracted by scandal, China and Russia are watching. They are building alternative systems, gold-backed architecture, independent settlement networks, because they understand something the West refuses to admit. The dollar is no longer a safe haven, not because of economics alone, but because leadership is compromised. When your leadership is compromised, your currency becomes compromised. And this is why the world is shifting. The greatest geopolitical shift in modern history. Wealth moving away from a blackmail digital system and back toward hard money. Now you have a window right now, to look at the raw reality and understand that your financial protection is in your own hands, not the government, not the banks, not the media, because when the moment comes, they will not warn you in time. They will announce it when it's too late. They will say temporary measures. They will say for your safety. But by then, exit doors will be locked, and paper promises will become worthless. The Epstein files are the smoking gun of a failed system. And the $290 million secret is proof they will do anything to keep you in the dark. So I want you to ask yourself one question. After everything revealed, do you still trust the managers of these institutions with your family's future? Leave a comment below with the words, "Bank's secret." And if you've already started moving your wealth into physical silver or gold, tell me what you're stacking, because your engagement is the only way we bypass censorship and get this message to the people who need to hear it before the final crash begins. The mainstream financial media is designed to convince you these are isolated incidents, but the evidence shows the opposite. This is how the modern world is governed. And when you hold physical silver in your hand, you are holding 5,000 years of history, an asset no bank can freeze, no elite can compromise, no algorithm can delete. This is the ultimate hedge against tyranny and the incompetence of a central banking class that has spent decades stealing your purchasing power through inflation and debt while hiding their own secrets behind legal walls. The countdown is here, and the unsealing of these files is the opening shot. A global conflict over money, value, and control. You have been given a warning, and now the responsibility is yours. Stay vigilant. Stay focused on reality, because the digital trap is closing, and only those with truth and mettle will survive what comes next. So subscribe, turn on notifications, because the global banking system is moving faster than anything we've seen in recorded history. And on this channel, we will continue tracking the unsealed documents, the secret moves, and the real story they are terrified you will understand. Keep stacking, keep sharing, because the banking secret is out, and the time to protect your family's future is right now.